I'm absolutely craving a breakthrough conversation to bust through layers of my bullshit and hopefully yours too as you're listening to this today. So often, I think too often, we get hooked into stories about who we are, where we've been, what we have done or haven't done, and we let that frame the vision we have for what's possible for us. And when I'm sitting with my own shit, sometimes I can really despair. Like I go into a depressive state over the thought that maybe collectively we've all lost faith in our own capacity to be alchemizing agents in our own lives. And not everybody, right? Like I keep my eyes peeled and I'm always looking for inspiration. And I know that there are people already existing as like living Buddhas and living in expanded consciousness and activating transformation in ways that I can only begin to imagine. And I also know about myself that at times I feel like there are rockets of desire and intention like shoved up my ass because I can feel the potential inside of me. And I experience like these cosmic states of creativity where I am the Kanye West in my own story. So I know that exists within me. And so I devote myself to trusting my own guidance, my own experience, no matter what that is, no matter how messy that gets. And let me tell you, that shit's not easy. So when I think of activating trust in the incarnation that we are each experiencing, my perception is that the people that are showing up in the world with the audacity to transmute the pain of their human experience with a sense of creativity and playfulness, a luminosity that makes it impossible for us to look away, are the walking, living, breathing guides of our own initiation into the alchemy of transforming and transmuting our own shitty experiences into our unique and necessary magic. And today in front of me, I have a being that I see truly as a legendary, iconic alchemist. In this chaotic world, Angel continues to show up and send rockets of desire and intention into space for all of us to see. And the blaze of her being is impossible to ignore. So today I'm excited to bring to you and to me the opportunity to have the part of me that gets truly turned on by the audacity that she has to not only lead her own life, but call all the women around her forward to talk to her and to have a conversation with her. I'm so lit up and I'm going to shut up and welcome Angel to say hello to us all now.
That was one of the most superbly spoken and written intros I've ever heard, and I've done hundreds of podcasts. That was stunning. It made me want to look up your chart. It made me want to understand your brain, lick your mouth. Like that was so beautiful, and I'm so honored. And I could hear myself reacting and almost wanting to deflect your praise and deflect the impact you're trying to share on me. And it's so fucking boring. I hate when I do that. And I'm speaking to it so I can just let it go. And I am going to make a post after this quoting you about being the Kanye West of your own story, because wow, that was chef's kiss brilliance. Thank you so much for sharing all of that and articulating it the way that you did. Woo! I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited to have this conversation. And I love being a rocket of desire and intention, penetrating willing buttholes worldwide. So let's go and get it.
Selfishly today, as I sat and I prepared to speak to you, I thought, I'm not going to fucking sit here and write these like boring, stale questions. I'm going to just selfishly hope and pray that Angel would be willing to give us just a divine download of who she is today and what's coming through her and what feels potent and powerful and necessary to kind of share with us today. So I know you have always got a lot going on, but I know like particularly in the last week or so, there's been huge transformation in your outer world and your inner world. And I know there must be divine download to fucking share with us.
I'm at the point where I think the divine downloads are just a constant state of diarrhea. I swear to you, it's coming out constantly, and I don't plan on getting any intuitive Imodium anytime soon. I love letting loose. The purge has been real, and like you said, I really do ultimately always have something going on. But also, to be honest with you, I don't know if you get this, where people are like, you're always busy, you've always got something going on, like you're always doing something. And for a long time, I carried shame around that. So can I just speak to that for just a quick second? Is that I don't think I always have something going on. I think I'm just living like I mean it. And people tuning in are so desensitized, sterilized, complacent. Their homeostasis is the opposite of what it is I am. They're committed to stagnation. I'm married to dynamicism. And I find it so perplexing that I'm, almost nearly put on this pedestal, because people will tell me that all the time. Like, you always have so many things going on. You're always so busy. You're always working. But to me, I nap, I have fun. You know what I mean? Like, I truly really feel like I'm nailing this thing. And I just think it's about being alive. And I suppose my invitation for everybody is to recognize that I'm always going to have something going on in my life, because I will go out on my last breath, still moving, still beating, still throbbing, and still horny as fuck for everything life throws at me. Like, I'm not going to pretend else, I suppose, otherwise. And I made a commitment this year to actually take back the hustle and the grind, but divinify it and make it like that heroine's journey hustle, and that goddess grinding. And I'm so down for that. Now, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, nothing is something anyway. Like I always feel, I get the same. People are always saying to me, you're so busy. And actually my intention in life at the moment is to not be busy, is to be powerful and to be present and to be intentional in everything that I do. But I don't know. I don't fetishize busyness at all. Like, I have no desire to kind of pump my day full of anything that doesn't feel good. So I really hear what you're saying. And I think what I want to highlight is, I think it's really powerful to know that for most of us, we kind of crack this code of knowing to get more done, we actually have to slow down. We actually have to feel more. We actually have to suspend the idea that it's our logic and our intellect that takes us places, and like touch ourselves, be with ourselves, tune back into the innate guidance system that's there, that will actually propel us forward in ways we could have only dreamed of.
You are very well spoken. Yes, that's exactly what it is. I think the big problem is that we are programmed, conditioned. This productivity thing is pummeled into us, right? And especially as women, we're essentially told that we are to be the conveyor belt junk food drive-through experiences of making babies and getting stuffed with dicks and bullshit and more children, and that our only purpose is to literally procreate. We indulge this martyrdom. We don't understand a life outside of giving ourselves to everybody else except ourselves. Whereas now I'm getting excited about, okay, so like, what does it look like if I'm really busy because I'm being in service to myself? Like, what does it look like if my productivity is churning because I'm making a factory for my vision, right? I'm becoming a machine, or like this weapon for what it is I want to do. And in that sense, especially as a manifesting generator, the energy appears, right? It's like the energy will appear for what it is I want to do. You're only tired, you're only exhausted, you're only depleted, you're only going too quickly when the energy is not available for you. So if the energy is not available for you, you've got to be asking yourself the question, why does this feel so hard? Why does this feel like work? Why does it feel like labor? The only difference between me and that person is that they haven't cracked the energy code. I have an Energizer bunny up my ass because I'm so embodied. If there isn't an Energizer bunny shoved up your ass, it's because you're not embodied and you're not leaning into the things that give you energy. There's this infinite accessibility to what lights us up. And that's what I mean about kind of circling back to the I'm just alive. Like I'm being alive, and I'm going balls to the wall with being alive. And I did also want to mention, because you wanted to tap into that kind of divine download, but I know that some of the topics that had come up for us were things like community and, collaboration over competition and healing that sister wound in business and all that sort of thing. So what I would like to hear from you is what comes up on your end when you see me exemplifying what you deem as perhaps a valuable perspective or a valuable way of doing things or leading things in that arena.
You're the full body fuck yes for me, Angel. You're the full body fuck yes. And this conversation, I said to Angel before we started recording that I was just so lit up and so excited by this in a way that I'm not usually. Like, I'm always inspired to talk to people that, you know, I respect what they do. But for me, you are living evidence. You're like a manifestation in motion of the audacity to be creating for yourself in real time. To not, I think too often I get really put off when people talk about like have a vision for your life and then work towards it. But if who I am today isn't all that I deem myself possible of being, why would the version of me today have the vision for what I'm moving towards? And what I see in you, what I appreciate in you is that you just have the audacity to kind of just throw the balls in the air and just
I call it throwing spaghetti at the fucking wall and seeing what sticks.
Right. That's what I appreciate, is that I don't have respect for you necessarily because of any particular thing that you're doing. Or if somebody said to me, you know, what is it about her that you really respect? There's no kind of like byline that I have of like why I have so much respect for you. It is the embodiment. It is the being. It is the manifestation in motion that I'm witnessing and that I continue to witness. And the other thing that I will say I really appreciate about you and that I see on your social media is the way that you genuinely bring people with you. It's not bringing people with you for the sake of them all kind of, you know, just highlighting how great you are. I can really see, I can really feel the way you advocate for other women's greatness. And you're not trying to make them little puppets of yourself. Everybody's so diverse and so different on your platform. I feel like I'm rambling now, but
no, you're not at all. I think this is so brilliant. There's so many things that I can riff off with that. We'll start at the tail end of it. Like, I remember when I started sort of dipping my feet into the digital entrepreneurial landscape in 2014. And it's when I was really like into birth work, and I wanted to create a business course for birth professionals because it didn't exist. And I wanted to, it's a really toxic, what I'll say is put a bunch of women together, you know what happens, but a really toxic, man, the scarcity was out of control. So you can imagine that the martyrdom in that arena, so anyone who's a midwife, a doula, whatever it might be, they're working themselves to death. Talking about business in that space was horrifying because there were, you know, the competition between the midwives and the doulas and the hierarchies and, you know, the economic system, the medical system. And I was like, I really want to make something that feels different, that gives people this information, but also kind of helps them heal that sister wound, the fear that they have around, can I find genuine, sincere collaboration, right? Like, is connection with colleagues, a mutual reciprocity, possible? Prior to that, it wasn't really a thing. It was kind of a dog eats dog world. And if you've worked in hospital systems, anyone listening has worked in hospital systems, maternal health care, it's very much a lot of tired people. They're exhausted, they're adrenal fatigue, compassion fatigue. So their way of surviving is the modern day witch hunt. That's essentially why APRA exists. Now, people look at collaboration, old school business, not anymore, thank God. It's only taken 10 years for people to catch on to this, that collaboration is a strategy. I mean, you look at social media influencing the digital marketing space, where now the clearest picture I could paint for you is you can create a post on Instagram and collaborate with somebody. And the idea is that you propagate each other's audiences. There's, again, mutual respect, mutual reciprocity. But other industries are lagging behind in this and still holding on to this every man for himself, this very competition, comparisonitis based entrepreneurialism or business mentality or whatever it might be. And we see the cost of this: deep insecurity, frustration, loneliness, isolation. And entrepreneurship, especially for women, is not something you can tackle alone. And I reference this to people who worked in the birth space, because when you're seeing people live and seeing people die, and you're seeing the mechanics and organics of trauma, vicarious trauma, you need spaces to debrief. So in the same way that when women are frustrated or fearful or, you know, upset, they will tend and befriend. Men will fight or flight. So women have now been pulled from circles, pulled from spaces where they can connect with each other, support each other. They don't actually have anywhere to tend and befriend in the business space. So this has changed a lot over the last 10 years with people like Marie Forleo or, you know, what's her name, Leonie Dawson, people like that sort of that have kind of come in over the last decade and pioneered many of these spaces supporting women. And I think now we're realizing that it's not possible to do this alone. If we're going to support embodied entrepreneurship, as an example, whatever it is you do, you need to have a circle of people to hold you so that when you're feeling softer and you're feminine, you've got a masculine container to do the work for you. And I'm sure you'll notice that like a lot of people sort of rely on their husbands or their partners and it doesn't work. So their partners either don't give a shit about what it is they're doing, or it's a lot of, oh, well, he lets me spend the money on this, or he doesn't care what I do. And that's even grossly more isolating, because when you feel invisible and you're showing up in your most passionate expressed state, you feel even worse than invisible. You feel like a ghost haunting the potential of your vision. It's absolutely atrocious. So for me, you know, this seeing this over and over and over again, I was like, hold on, in my brain, the only logical way to tackle this is to show people in real time the reward of coming together as professionals and as people. And so over time doing this, I saw that from, again, a self-serving perspective, how amazing it was to bolster community, you know, increase your believability, your trust, integrity. Of course, that's important. You need to be constantly making moves that support your brand. And so if I knew my values were connection and relationship and reliability and I had to become the blazing beacon for those things. And in doing that, I continue to attract people. And it's taking me many, many years to now finally get to this place where I feel like I can bring people with me and not get used or not get taken advantage of or not get left behind. So for me as a person with, you know, fear and attachment issues and abandonment issues, I have a tendency to over deliver and over love because I'm so afraid of being left. I'm so afraid of being rejected. So it's taken me a very long time to work out ways where I'm not doing it at a detriment to myself, or I'm doing it from a really solid anchored place. And Social Media Slay is truly the first course that I've done. And I've done many, 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 like the first communities where I feel like I've nailed it. And it's taken even 6 months in that course to weed out all of the bad energy, all of the bad juju, all of the people who were coming to take and not to give, and really fortify this intimate, beautiful, dynamic space where people are genuinely a community. And I think that for me to get here, everyone needs to understand that for years, people called me a cult leader because I was trying to, in true visionary fashion, pioneer a new way of doing things that people were not interested in subscribing to or adopting because it threatened their old way of being. And after 10 years of being a cult leader, now I'm like, hey, bro, drink my fucking Kool-Aid if it's going to make you a cooler person and make you feel a little less lonely at night.
Okay. Just processing this. There's two things I want to say. You already spoke to it. I was going to ask you to please speak to the shadow that I witness and feel within myself about activating others and then feeling resentful when they go and they live their best life and they fulfill their fantasy and they seem to have kind of just forgotten, but you've spoken to that beautifully.
I could talk about that for an hour, but yes, go ahead.
What I would actually like you to speak to, because it took me a little while to understand this and the different way that I had to operate and communicate within myself. I thought I was an educator, and now I'm beginning to really know and honor myself as a visionary. And I think the distinction between educator and visionary is very different, just in the way you show up, the containers you create, the way that you communicate. Could you please speak to the difference, the distinction in being an educator as opposed to a visionary, or a visionary as opposed to being an educator?
So if we were to look at education, we imply a body of work that's regurgitated, shared. You know what I mean? Kind of like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you're sharing a message. Whoever is sharing it, whoever is teaching it makes no difference. Now, that's not true. We know this now, but that's what kind of the word is synonymous with. An educator is someone who can teach anything or everything, but who is teaching it doesn't necessarily take away from, for example, how does neuroscience work? Or how does dog grooming work, right? If there is a set of instructions or whatever it might be, then it's not relying on the person. The visionary is exclusively responsible for what it is they are seeing, creating, executing, and putting out in the world. Without the visionary, the educator has no material to teach. So the education is a byproduct of the visionary backing what it is they feel called to share. The visionary is incredibly alone. We look at statistically, historically, visionaries are hung, murdered, the heretic, right? I mean, we've done this over and over and over again. We killed a person for having a different perspective, and then we worship them years later, or we finally, give them the credit that they deserve. Educators don't take those risks. Educators don't take any of those risks. They can educate without being embodied. I would much prefer you use a word like activator, because then we can look at educating from a place of energetics and emotions and weaving a reaction in a person's body that arouses them to another state of being. But with education, there's a sterility to it, and the system's done that. They want to make it feel sterile. The visionary can be sterile. It's not in their blood. They're born to be confronting. They're born to ruffle feathers. And trust me, I don't like it. If you're visionary, you will get it. It'll piss you off. You feel like the black sheep. You're just exhausted and bored with being rejected constantly, right? Shrinking and saying the right thing. You almost create this persona so people will take you in. It is not, we use the word visionary almost frivolously these days. And I try and explain to people like, no, honestly, when you're in full heretic mode, it's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying, especially if you're a single mom and you look different, or you're part of a minority or disenfranchised or vulnerable community, or you're a person of color. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It takes balls and audacity to be a visionary and hold on to your sight without pulling out your eyes to go blind just so you can survive through the next night. There's a huge difference. An educator does none of those things.
How do we, those of us that can see visionaries with clarity and can appreciate and respect and honor what they do and why they're here in the world, how do we best support and celebrate the visionary? Not in a way that's like emoji and like and just share, like how do we actually support the visionary in their work, in their life?
That's a wonderful question. I think though that societally we still have this sort of weird religious undertone with this, right? So we think that there's the visionary and there's the followers. That's why I prefer coming at it from a content creator, which literally is a following, because that's what we do. This is what humans do. We're socially driven creatures. We use upward social comparison or downward social comparison. And in the reflection we have of ourselves and others, we create our identities. We are programmed to do this. This is why I say in social media, you're looking at me, the visionary. I call myself the energetic, emotional exhibitionist, and you, the virtual voyeur. So you come in and your kink is taking me in. And if you're comfortable taking me in and I'm comfortable with you taking me in, boom, it's magic. But the second you come to me and start to feel guilty or ashamed about me being your kink, that's when we see the trolling, the Judas, all these other things that happen subsequently. This is why we look at cult leaders and everything, because when you are a light, people trapped in darkness are going to be magnetized towards you no matter what. How you as the light holder or light giver continue to show up in integrity without being a, bombastic, manipulative, horrible human being, that's sort of where the discerning is. Now, what I wish people understood is that in an age where I'm talking about billions of people on the internet, where there are millions of people scrolling at every second, where we are actively pedestaling people that we follow, right? Or we are worshiping them or simping them or whatever it might be, to be more conscious in how we proactively participate in that person's content. Because I'm not here to be the porn hub for people who have no light for themselves. I'm not here to be the wank bank for somebody who wants a taste of me, but then feels really guilty after they've got a taste and they close the computer and walk away and then talk shit about me and then come back for seconds, behind the safety of that keyboard. I also deserve respect. And much like any other creator, any influencer, any person who's a public figure or a personality of any type that you look up to for anything from makeup to shadow work, you have to understand that these are real people and they need your support and they need your feedback and they need positive actions taken on their accounts so that they are able to rank, more successfully, be seen by more people. If you have someone who inspires the shit out of you, it is so easy to optimize the metadata that you are giving that app so that that person can be seen by more people. And I'll say that if you really cared about changing the world, if you really cared about raising the vibrational consciousness, if you really cared about more people getting eyeballs on things that matter, then you wouldn't be as selfish to not interact with content that lights you up, because that keeps that content from somebody whose lives it could have changed. So I'm more concerned about people being more aware of how they failed to participate and what it cost that visionary, and be more engaged to say, wow, maybe if I take this a moment right now to leave a comment or share this or tag this person, maybe there's somebody somewhere who's going to then get that page come across their feed, and that piece of content's going to change their lives. Visionary means something so different right now. There's a saturation, there's more visibility, there's, you know, people having phones in their hands constantly. It's not just these isolated incidents or gurus or cult leaders or, you know, religious fanatics. Like, these are people, normal people like you and I, who are changing people's lives. Even if that's 100 people, you bet your ass you're still a visionary, in the same way you're a visionary for 10,000 people. If you could become a light source, a light bulb, a match, for fuck's sake, for people who are out in the cold and in the dark and haven't seen light for years, then you are a visionary to those people, in the same way that to a child, mother is God. And that's something to be taken seriously. And I'm very grateful for the virtual environment because of that.
And what an opportunity I think socials is for us. We're literally forced to look at our own shit every single day, because day after day after day, I don't care what anybody says, I don't care how much inner work you've done, you're triggered by something. There's something that pops up that forces you to face your own shit in some way. And I just think I'm so grateful for social media, not just because of the proximity and access that I have to the brilliant minds and souls and wisdom of people that, you know, generations before me would never even have perceived as existing, let alone be in direct communication with, but for the quite ugly and uncomfortable opportunity that it is to really fucking go deep within my own darkness every day when I open my phone. And I just see, it's not even just influencers, it's like having to sit in my privilege and see what's happening on the other side of the world, and sit and be like, I'm doing nothing about that now. And in fact, I'm going to distract and disassociate. And does that make me a shit person?
Yes.
And have to be with that.
Yes.
All of the opportunity to really see ourselves clearly, I hope gives us the opportunity to liberate parts of ourselves that probably won't benefit us, maybe not even our children, but hopefully in due time, you know, generations to come will benefit from the wrestling that we're doing within ourselves in having to see all of this so close, you know, every day.
Yes. And I mean, look at this, like, this social media is this quantum leap accelerator, shadow worker, energetic vehicle. And our phone, right? It's like you're a cyborg now. Your phone is always, I mean, you drop your phone somewhere and you have a physical reaction. So now how cool is it that we've evolved to have a shadow work reflection device, much like Simba looking in the pond when Rafiki the Aquarian is like, time to grow up. Like, this is our Simba pond. And we're looking at it and it's like, listen, you're going to see what you're going to see. What you fucking do with what it is you see is completely up to you. And we're still going to use it, and there's no hiding. So I think it's fascinating that a phone can reach a person and help them break through quicker than anything else, because even if you're programmed to deflect and distract and disassociate, if you see something 10,000 times, eventually you're going to crack. What other opportunity in the world do you have to break through in the capacity that social media and any social networking application allows you to? I think that's surreal. And because ultimately social media just shows you more of what it is you already are, and it makes you more of what it is you already are. It doesn't create a personality for you. It doesn't create a character. You're feeding it information and it is exacerbating it, throwing it right back at you. And don't act shocked when what it is you see looks like a wolf or looks like a sheep or looks like anything in between. Just like money's not evil. It just makes you more of what it is you already are. So it doesn't matter how much money you make or how little you make. There's no virtue signaling there, because the person you are is buried at the core of it. So I don't care if you don't use social media. If you did, it would show you the exact same thing that shows me.
Let's move and talk about the importance of community, but also of right community. because it's not enough just to say like, oh yeah, I have a community, I have people that I see frequently, you know, I've got friends that I've known forever, and, you know, use that as a flex. Can you speak to the importance of a community that is of quality and substance and satisfaction and will actually uplift you? I'm going to stop just
no, amazing question. I'm going to reference something that one of my best friends says, Coco D, so Coco Dufro, you guys can follow her. I am Coco D on Instagram. She says, your network is your net worth. And I love that. In my mom's French, and she used to say something like, qui se rassemble s'assemble, which essentially translates to like, who you hang out with is a mere reflection of you. And therefore, whoever you hang out with, you become a reflection of. So you better be careful of who you hang out around, because you're either going to become everything it is you're meant to be and destined to be, or you're going to be reduced to the rubble of what it is you could be. Much like becoming the sum of you know, all your parts, those parts being people. I always grew up feeling alone. And I also believe in that same breath that loneliness is the prerequisite to leadership. So I'm not going to take away from that necessity. I don't think community is for everyone. I think there are absolutely times where you should be in community with yourself, meaning me, myself, and I, calling all those parts home, bringing them all back together before you seek out things in other people, because that's agenda and we don't want that, okay? Disclaimer. It has taken me so long to figure out how to attract quality over quantity, and then how to be discerning with who it is in my inner circles or outer circles, to eventually create filtering systems so that only the most impeccable humans are left. And I'm 36 years old. I don't believe people are able, and I'm saying this totally boldly, because they just don't have enough experience or critical thinking capabilities or to really understand what it takes to build community, be a part of community, sustain community until they're in their late 30s, early 40s. Because people now mistake friendship groups, socialization for community. In true community, you know, weaknesses and strengths are sort of compensated. There are axes at play. There are dynamics. People that are really good at one thing, but not so good at another thing, will be supported by another person who can, I suppose, give them the opposite of that. Community is like this symbiosis. There's a real awareness. It's like, I'm going to come to this space, totally considerate that if I come here in any other way, it's going to affect you. Like, for example, being trauma informed or whatever it might be. Knowing that that person over there, you know them so intimately that you're aware that if you say this or do this, that might send them off into that. And they're doing the same for you. There's an intimacy in community. That's the community that we no longer participate in, unfortunately. Tribes, villages, whatever that used to look like once upon a time, we have replaced with marriage and the baby carriage and the fences between houses and the gossiping. And the only real time women get together anymore, again, is like what, maternal health circle? Like, it's very, that's just what it is. Or you're getting drunk at a club with your friends. So I can see all the mistakes I made growing up, like trying to fit in with the cool people, or, you know, entertain people that I had no interest in, or changing myself to make myself more palatable to someone that I think I needed to be in with. And as you get older, it's not about that anymore. I don't want clients. I want community, and I want funds or any kind of exchange to be a byproduct of that, right? I want relationships. That's what feels rewarding to me. Just because somebody pays me to do something, it can feel like they're taking more away than 10 times the amount of what it is they've spent. And then on the other hand, I can give something for free to somebody that I'm in community with, and I'll be rewarded 50,000 times more than I've ever given away. And that to me is the difference. And what I look for now is, Do I feel energized or eaten alive when I come to this space? How do these people feel in my presence? And as a facilitator and a community builder, I come at it with different strategies and different approaches. And I'm almost like really like brutal now with how I hold my space. Like if you say a shitty thing, if you breach and you come in with too many bad moods, if you are, really negative, constantly complaining, like, I mean, the list is long, you're not welcome anymore. I may have watched a billion zombie movies and I may have planned out what I would do in a zombie apocalypse. And to me, it's like, if I wouldn't fight zombies with you at the end of the world, then I'm not going to give you my arm and my leg right now to keep you alive. And that can be really tricky territory for people like me and like you who have a lot to share and a lot to teach. And we want that stage and we want that platform, and we attract the wrong kind of person and they end up being a parasite instead of someone who's actually going to participate proactively alongside of us, co-creating and coalescing as opposed to leeching.
This leads me beautifully into what I will make my last question for you today. A little bit of context. When I was 29 years old, I basically burned my life to the ground and started again, right? Literally like threw pretty much everything out, everyone out, started again. And I found, for lack of a better word to use, and I'll just use the cringy manifesting word, I quantum leaped into my next fucking reality so quickly, I think, because I left everything that wasn't serving me for dead. Like it was gone. And there was no part of me that had to reflect on whether I would be accepted or whether it was okay to do the things that I was doing, who I was becoming, whether I would still be held and loved and honored, because I had let pretty much everybody go. I was free to be exactly who I was becoming. And so my question in this is, knowing this now, do you think that in order for us to continue to evolve and in order for us to really experience the full expansion of who we might become in this life, there is a kind of argument for there being a need and necessity to kind of burn everything to the ground time and time again, and not routinely? It's not like I go, oh, it's been 2 years, you've all got to go, get the fuck out of my life, you're gone. But do you think, from your perspective, that it is possible to be fully and truly all that we can be, all that who we are, with people around us who start to kind of categorize us and box us and need us to be a certain way?
Absolutely fucking not. No, for rebirth is a ritual for me. Rebirth is a routine for me. Rebirth to me is a necessity, in the same way that every time spring, summer, fall, and winter hits and the death calls and the decay is no longer, we need that season in order to fertilize the ground for what comes next. Lucky us, as women, we are inbuilt fertilizer houses. So we cry and we bleed and we squirt and we sweat. And if we have enough patience, we can just sit on top of the ground and take something from barren to bold and brazen and alive, right? If you are not embracing the winter of your life like clockwork, aka avoiding rebirth, you're fucked. Because if we lobotomize winter from our own seasonal cycle, what would happen? If you stood out under the sun for a long time, you burn, don't you? If you avoid death, you will burn far harder and far more excruciatingly than if you just embrace the slow, gentle death at your disposal. I think that when we keep people in our social circles, or when we stay at that job, or when we do whatever it is, and it stops feeding us, and first it's a little inkling, and then it gets louder, then you start feeling tired, you start getting sick around these people or this environment, and slowly but surely your commitment to stagnation and your comfort and this almost perturbing loyalty you have to what it is or how it's been for so long is about to eat you alive. You realize that the cure, the medicine to how it is you're feeling is in leaving everything behind. Things change. So I do believe that, yes, sometimes it's 2 years, sometimes it's 3 years. I think that we have inbuilt systems, seasonal cycles, where we have to let that season of our life fuck off, or we can't move into the season in front of us. I believe that I'm like an Olympian-sized phoenix. And for so long, I was ashamed of that, because why do you change your mind so often? Why do you do this? Like, now I love it. I love these things about me, because everyone who questioned me, made me feel like garbage, or, reduced me, where are they all now? How did I give so much power to these people at that moment in time when I wouldn't want to live their life, and I wouldn't want to be in their bodies, and I wouldn't want to be the face behind their fake smiles? I'm still here standing because I say yes to death. I'm successful because I say yes to losing everything. I feel the reward because I say yes to risk over and over and over again. If you stay comfortable, that's stagnation. And what happens to a body of water when it stops moving? It turns to a cesspool. The only way to become a channel and get those divine downloads, baby, is to literally move in the opposite direction of stagnation. So more crying, more coming, more squirting, more bleeding, more embracing that Kali and that destruction, and then leaning into what creativity becomes available for you on the other side of that. And if you're feeling uninspired, take a look at the people around your life. Is it writer's block, or are you hanging around people who are making you feel fucking drained?
I know this is truth, and I thank you so much for just being the embodied fucking permission slip for me to own it and love it in myself too, because there's that sense of like, I guess there's been a lot of judgment around, being flippant, being cold, being, I don't know, the worst part of my personality can be when I feel myself wanting to just be like easy to get along with, and helpful and supportive, and all of that kind of flavor is just like it's gross for me. And the part of me that knows that she fucking doesn't need anyone or anything, that I can find myself anywhere at any time, and I will thrive.
You really have got to back yourself. Truly, you are so well spoken. Your aura is beaming. I feel like you're closeting this, or you're shrinking, or you're containing, and I don't know who you're afraid of offending in the process, or what do you think it's going to cost you. But be the supernova and let everything get out of the way. It's either they buckle up, or they get on board, or they get left behind. But you would rather that than get on your deathbed one day and say, I wish I coulda, or I shoulda. You don't want that, right? A lot of the people you're worrying about right now, they are not going to matter. I don't care if it's a partner, it's a mother-in-law, it's a mother. The reality is if we are not ruthless with how we curate the gallery of our life, we get lost in the ether. No one remembers our name. There's no memory left of us. It's just not worth it. Be loud and be full of light and be bright and take up the space. And if people feel inadequate around you, tell them to get better. That's it. The only reason people don't want you to shine is because that holds them accountable to shining themselves. And that's not a good reason to get left behind.
A fucking man. We will leave it there, because I know that, like, your time is precious, and I've just seen your beautiful daughter walking around in the background too. I love that. I always love highlighting that we are all things all at one time. There is no compartmentalizing this shit,
No, this is real life. I told you I don't want to be Voldemort. There are no Horcruxes here. I am here in all my parts. If I was a little bit more above the screen, you'd see my nipples shining from the sheen of my neon green shirt. And I'm totally okay with that. Thank you for having me. That was a really beautiful conversation. If anyone wants to find me, they can. Instagram.com/the_angel_phoenix or www.angel-phoenix.com. There's a bunch of really cool stuff about to drop and happen. I have a podcast. You can find Bad Influencer on your favorite streaming service provider. And if not, come and talk shit and cause a little trouble on the World Wide Web with me. I would appreciate it.
Thank you deeply, Angel. Thank you.
You're welcome.